Oh, hello everyone, it's Susie, Crypto Granny here. Today's the 12th of the 12th, 2022, and the time in Amsterdam, Europe is 20:35 p.m. Sorry I'm a bit late today. I got up a bit late and I'm just going through all the news in terms of fiat markets and cryptocurrency markets. And what I'll do is I'll go through the stats. I'll talk about NEXO. I'll talk about a lot of FUD out there, Binance at the moment. I'll talk about Binance potentially being under investigation by the US Department of Justice and a few other regulatory departments in the US. I'll also talk about Binance's reserves. I'll talk about Wirex, which we also have in our trading portfolio. I'll talk about a hack, Lodestar Finance exploited with a flash loan attack. Also talk about the World Cup. We'll talk about Genesis potential liquidation, and also Genesis parent company also, which is DECG. So basically, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. They're obviously, the cryptocurrency group, digital cryptocurrency group, DCG. I'll also talk about stable coins, which are not stable coins. I've always said this to you guys and to all my clients. US Tether or, anything, that's supposed to be pegged to the US dollar at 1. We do see that a lot of stable coins are losing their pegs to the $1 US and going lower than the $1 US. And I've always told my clients to sell stable coins. Do not sit in stable coins, because stable coins are not stable, because they do depeg from a dollar to the US dollar, okay? I'll also talk about Ripple and the SEC, which is just so tiring, seriously. I'll talk about Ripple and carbon credits and gaming. I'll talk about one of Ripple's clients expanding, which is great for Ripple as well. I'll talk about XRP, Fiat and Zoom. Then Twitter, decentralized land, FTX, Coinbase, and a few other themes in cryptocurrency market, as well as the fiat markets. So the first thing I'll start with actually is fiat markets and the important data that is out this week. And the most important one of them is the FOMC meeting. The Federal Open Markets Committee will decide whether they're going to raise interest rates again this week. And that will come out on the 14th of the 12th at 2 p.m. ET USA time. And then you'll have obviously the head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, talk about obviously what they're thinking. Now the market does think they're going to go 50 basis points. About probably a month ago they were thinking they're going to go 75 basis points. I believe they've rate hiked too quickly. I think economic growth is, really poor everywhere globally, including China, the UK, Australia, and the US. I think things are really bad globally, particularly with COVID and supply chain problems and all sorts of things. Plus, China is in a terrible recession at the moment. They're not growing full stop, and they need to grow by about 8% per annum in terms of the growth of their economy to actually employ millions and millions of Chinese from the rural areas. So there's a lot going on here. Now, the FOMC rate hike 75 basis points. That's going to be seriously aggressive. It will bring the US cash rate to 4.75%. And we do see that US interest rate curve actually flattening quite quickly, because the obviously the short-term cash rates, they're pegging right up. Okay, but going forward, if you look at the 10-year bond rate in the US, it's currently 3.58 yield, and they're clearly expecting a recession going forward, right? If a cash rate's currently at 4% and they go another 75 basis points, it's going to bring US cash to 4.75. And that is extremely aggressive. Honestly, I've got to tell you that. When we see there's more layoffs every week in tech firms, 964 tech firms in the US are laying off people every week, and now it's about 150,000 people that are being laid off in IT, and it's affecting the world globally as well, with the Indian IT workers and everyone else, right? They're not being employed, and consultants are not being employed or anything else, right? So, the US dollar currently is at around 137.47. If the US Fed does go 75 basis points, the US will rally against the yen. The Aussie will sell off against the US, and anything that is US based will go up clearly. Now, if they go 50 basis points, the market will think, right, this is the end of the easing, and they will probably sell the US dollars. So it's not a bad trade to have on, actually, probably with some options, because you will get some volatility, a lot of volatility in that market, and also you'll get a lot of volatility in risk markets, simply because if they go another 75 basis points, the US equity market will definitely sell off. In other words, prices go down, and the cryptocurrency market could do the same thing. But it's a bit hard with crypto because it really shouldn't be reacting so much to interest rate figures in the fiat economy from the fiat institutions, because, as you know, crypto is about technology. It's as plain as day, right? So there's a couple of big events this week. Obviously, US CPI tomorrow, which will be out, and that's going to be a very important figure as well. That'll be out around 11 a.m, I think, ET standard time. Obviously, if that figure comes in higher than they're anticipating for annual inflation, then, obviously, they will probably go higher than that. Now, let's just have a look where annual inflation was last time round. It was coming down a little bit, which is good. And that, but the Fed have said, look, we want to bring annual inflation down to 2.5%, which is just, in my mind, nuts, right? Last time round, annual inflation for the US CPI year on year, we'll just look at that, was 7.7%. They're now expecting 7.3% to come in tomorrow. Now, if annual inflation's below 7.3%, the interest rate market will rally. Okay, yields will go down, price will go up, and that will also be good for risk markets, okay, because the market will expect the US on the 14th to probably do 50 basis points, right? But if they do 75, it is seriously, seriously overkill. And I do believe what Elon Musk says, that effectively it's going to put the US into a shocking, shocking recession. Now, he sees it on the ground like a businessman. People are losing their jobs, left, right and centre. The US non-farm payroll figures, even though they've been strong, we do see the people that are applying for first benefits, like a person's been working, they've never applied for unemployment benefits, those figures are still rising, okay? So I don't believe a lot of the figures I read out of the US in terms of economic data, because, simply the data that the US government and the statisticians release, it doesn't weigh up with what's really happening on the ground in the US or even in Australia or anywhere else for that matter. People are really suffering. Their savings are reducing. Utility bills are sky high. Food sky high. People are just going backwards, okay? And wages are not going up as much as inflation, right? That's a fact, right? So if you sit in cash, you're going to lose money just because of inflation, right? So let's talk about the cryptocurrency market. We've got a lot to talk about, and I haven't picked up all the stories, guys and girls, because you can appreciate there's like heaps of stories out there. So I try and look at the main stories, okay, the main things of what's going on a daily basis, and I also, tell you my observations, okay? So pretty much at the moment, the market cap for the cryptocurrency market, according to Livecoin Watch, is 854 billion. Volume still low, around 37.246 bill. Liquidity is low at 3 bill. I monitor that very carefully. And Bitcoin dominance has edged up slightly to 38.41%. Bitcoin at the moment, as we speak, is 17,063. Ethereum is 1255. USD Tether is 1. Binance is 275. XRP is at 0.3799. And the market is slightly down today. Not much, but it is down maybe, anything from, depending on the coin or the token, anything from, 1 to maybe 3%. And also, if you look at coin market pages, you'll find that we're now, for coins and tokens, there's something like 22,013 coins and tokens in crypto land. I mean, that is massive. You can assume very carefully and clearly that Fed income, probably 98% or 99% of that figure, 22,000 odd, is going to be broke within the next 2 years. So it's really, when you do your analysis on your investments, you have to look at everything. And we've certainly learned that from FTX. We're doing absolute due diligence on NEXO. We're bringing out a couple really, really good work, amazing work, I've got to tell you, done by Elizabeth, our crypto consultant who works in the business. And there's some really fascinating stuff coming out for our Patreon clients. And we're looking a lot at NEXO. We're certainly looking at the owner of the business, the founder. He was Bulgarian. He worked for a Bulgarian company. We want to look at the background of him. Has he ever gone broke or any of these sort of things? So it's really important to really understand the founder of businesses. And this is something we're looking at with FTX, and we're going to do a review on FTX and look at pretty much where we got it wrong and what other important criterias we are going to, insert in terms of our red flags for investments. Do we invest or do we not? Clearly, if the management we believe is certainly, shoddy, or we believe that, they don't have integrity, if there's fraud or something, then that's a big red flag not to invest in that cryptocurrency of that management per se, right? So let's get on with NEXO anyway. NEXO's talking about an Ethereum, what are they talking about here? Ethereum to NETH, ETH to NETH. It's an Ethereum smart taking of some sort, where they actually have an Ethereum validator node, okay, where you can actually do some smart staking. So this seems quite interesting. We're going to have a look at that as well. We're doing, as I said, we're doing a lot of due diligence on NEXO. NEXO's had some good news though. They are looking to expand in Europe, particularly with this new MiCA potential regulation that's coming out in Europe in 2023. Okay, now obviously it's markets in cryptocurrency. This is what they're talking about. There's going to be new regulation, and if you get a Polish license or any license in Europe, you can actually then obviously increase your business with the European Union. Okay, this is a big story for NEXO. Other coin exchanges that are there already and they have a Polish license, their competitors clearly Coinbase, Binance, BitMEX, and Bitstamp. So this is big news for NEXO. It's a very, very good strategy. And the fact that they won the Polish license is excellent, because the Poles are very, very strict as well. Okay, so let's talk about Binance. Binance, their smart chain has added, potentially they're going to add Ox Plasma Labs, who basically proposes that Uniswap number 3 should be deployed to the Binance Smart Chain. And that's very obvious, right? Binance Smart Chain is very fast, it's very cheap, it doesn't cost an arm and a leg, and also it provides liquidity, and that's what Binance itself provides, is liquidity. Binance is the biggest exchange in the whole cryptocurrency market. 75% or 80% of the volume is done via Binance. Now the reality is you've got a lot of FUD out there re Binance at the moment, Binance Exchange. If Binance go down, and there's all this FUD about Binance, we might as well just forget crypto. Seriously, I'm not kidding, right? Because Binance is the market, right? And if people aren't comfortable with Binance, who are you going to be comfortable with? Binance has billions, in cash, billions in cryptocurrency, billions in profitability. And, they are a monopoly in cryptocurrency. It's akin to the London Stock Exchange for US shares, not operating anymore, right? Or the US Stock Exchange. So the reality is, if you're worried about Binance, you just might as well get out of this whole market, seriously. Because if Binance goes down, there's literally no market left, right? Binance is huge, and I just think the regulators in the US are just over the top, right? The US reportedly may be going to charge Binance for money laundering. I mean, seriously, where do they get this stuff from? No one wants to operate in the US. Fair income, I wouldn't want to operate there if I was trying to run a business and trying to make money and do all the right things. I mean, CZ, Changpeng Zhao already said that he's spending 2 days a week at least with his people, and he added another 500 people on compliance, right, in the last couple of months for compliance. They're already spending a fortune time on compliance and a fortune on time on delivering all the documents, internal records to the US regulatory authority. And seriously, if I was Binance, I'd forget about the US, just like NEXO did. NEXO were trying to get a US license, even though they own a US bank, and they're in absolute strong negotiations with the SEC and everyone, the Department of Justice, right? 18 months, and they wasted their time for 18 months. And they basically said, this is just too hard. We're not going to do this anymore because it's costing us a fortune. Now we know Ripple, against the SEC, has already paid out about 120 million in legal fees, right? And the only people who are winning are the lawyers, seriously. And, the US is just so much litigation, and the cost of lawyers is costing people a fortune, right? So, the thing is, with Binance, there's 3 departments in the US looking, to see if we're going to charge Changpeng Zhao with money laundering. And God knows what proof they've got. Seriously, this is just over the top. The United States Department of Justice, they're divided on whether they should bring a charge to the exchange. They're also, there's another one called the Money Laundering and Asset Recovery Section, the USA Attorney's Office of Washington, and the National Crypto Enforcement Team. I mean, how many regulators are there in the US? I mean, this is a business, seriously, and the regulators are in the business of making money. It's just outrageous, and honestly, how can you do business when you have to, provide daily information, constantly more information to these regulators? You just never get any business done, seriously. And I just think it's a joke. And also, there's a lot of FUD and comment about Binance's reserves, right? The thing is, they've been audited, they've proved their reserves, but then people say, what about their internal controls, right? It's the same for any bank. What about their internal controls, right? Anyone's going to ask it. People are asking you, what about how they liquidate, people in the system if they've got too many loans on board? I mean, crikey. I mean, NEXO do all this live, and I suspect that Binance would have a live, search engine that could do this as well, or a risk management type engine. And then people are saying, what about the corporate structure? Well, this applies to literally, every corporate in the US stock exchange. Seriously, this is just overkill. And as I said, if you're worried about Binance, you should not be in this cryptocurrency market, because Binance is pretty much the market of trading and investment volume and transaction turnover. This is just absolute poppycock. Really, I find it that. It's creating more FUD because people are worried about contagion effect and who else is going to go next. Is it Genesis? Is it, DCG, Digital Currency Group, the owner of Genesis? I mean, it's just more and more FUD. And we're seeing it in also stable coins. Now, I've always said stable coins aren't, stable, and that's true, because they lose their pegs, and I've always believed that, right? Nothing's stable, right? And the thing is, right, it's like that. You'd have $1 of nothing for the underlying currency, right? So, there are huge risks in crypto markets, right? Huge risks, we know that. But the thing is, if you cannot trust the biggest player in the market, it's almost like the biggest bank in the world, that has massive reserves, then, where do you go with this? Fair income. Anyway, the next, story I want to talk about is Wirex. And, Wirex we do hold, and it's one that I'm very interested in. It's very, very cheap at the moment. Extremely cheap. And they've expanded their whole crypto lineup to add another 52 new token and coins. Wirex, the last time I looked, had about 4 million clients. Now they've got 5 million clients. They want clients to be able to access DeFi. Now they're supported by Binance Smart Chain, Avalanche Network, Tron Network, Algorand, Polygon, Cosmos, Solana, and a lot. They're being supported by a lot of different mainnets, okay? Coins that have their own technology, right? Now, apparently the article said they are in 90 million locations in the world. 90 million. I need to check that because it sounds like a lot, but it could be a tie with Western Union, which apparently, if you're in a place like Toga, this is personal experience of a friend of mine, Africa, where there's no banks, mobile didn't work or anything else, cash cards don't work or anything, or even, traveller's checks or whatever, and I don't know whether people use those anymore, then the only way you can get money into Toga is through Western Union, right? And there's Western Union distribution centres everywhere in the world, right? And that was the only way this particular friend could get money in. So it could be that. But also, Wirex said, we want to be really Web3 focused, clearly, decentralised web. We've got a partnership with Near Foundation partnership to introduce DeFi investments to the Wirex customers. Now, Wirex in 2019 secured an e-money licence from the UK's Financial Conduct Authority, which now enables them, but also they've got other licenses to operate in 23 different countries in Europe, which is a lot more cryptocurrency friendly than the US per se. So, this is a really, really good story, an excellent story. And seriously, I think Wirex is certainly one to look at. We do invest in that and we like it very much from what we've seen of it. It is a bit of a specky, but it's very, very cheap at the moment, okay? Now, also, during the World Cup, and I love the World Cup, the soccer, as you know, a bit sad that, obviously the Netherlands didn't get anywhere, but it made me start thinking about these cryptocurrency token coins, like on Chile's. And, Brazil, after losing against Croatia, their token dropped about 65%. So before Croatia, the token was at about 23 cents, and then it dropped to about 0.0892, which I thought was quite amazing. So this is something I've said we really need to look at, because this is something that we can trade for the next time round rather than betting on bets and this sort of thing, which I think is quite interesting. Now, there's also talk of Genesis liquidation for their digital currency group, because there's a promissory note out there, right? Now, Digital Currency Group borrowed $1.1 billion allegedly from Genesis. It's a 10-year promissory note, and it may have to be, it could be structured where it's callable in an event of Genesis's liquidation, right? The problem is DCG would have to pay out $1 billion for that promissory note because they borrowed off Genesis. And if that was the case, then they could also put, unfortunately, Digital Currency Group into liquidation. And don't forget, Genesis had money with FTX. So this is what we call a contagion event, okay? A big one, right? So we'll just have to see what happens there. But unfortunately, FTX has affected a lot of people and a lot of investors, way out there, like heaps of people, right? Unfortunately, very unfortunate. So what else we got here? So talking about stable coins, we noticed that, Justin Sun stablecoin USDT lost its peg, got down to 96 cents from $1. They're buffering it up with more capital. Apparently, if you look at Justin Sun's stablecoin and you go to the website usdd.io, you'll see the stablecoin is over-collateralized by 201%. Okay, so that means that there's plenty of capital there to bring Justin Sun's stablecoin back to $1. Okay, but if you look at Waves' stablecoin USDN, that one's dropped from $1 to 75 cents to 76 cents. Okay, so this is the contagion effect that we're talking about, people. There's this big contagion effect. Okay, and one firm falls over, or an exchange like FTX, and it affects a lot of people. Okay, I will talk about Ripple and I'll leave that for last. I think Ripple and the SEC and what's happening with Ripple at the moment. Just very quickly, Decentralized have partnership with CoinGecko to launch NFTs, right? And they're going to do a host of drop parties, so keep an eye out for that. Twitter are going to expand from 280 character limit for words to 4,000. Elon Musk is launching today his Blue subscription package. If you're not using it on your mobile, you're going to have to pay $8 a month US. But if you're using Apple's mobile, you're going to have to, if you're an Apple user, you're going to have to pay $11 a month, because Apple, as you know, charged 30 cents in the dollar for every time someone downloads from Apple, right? So basically Elon Musk, to counteract that, is basically charging people that use Apple $11 a month and people that don't use Apple $8 a month. And that's going to really increase the finances of Twitter. Absolutely. Clearly he's increasing the word limit, but also people can upload videos and all sorts of things. So you can see who's in competition with here: YouTube, Facebook, everyone. He wants this to be the biggest social media group in the world. And that means that, if he compares himself to other social media groups, he wants to increase the 200 million of active users a month to something like 500 million. And I believe he will do that, and that 500 million people will have to pay. And I think that's a very, very smart decision. That's my viewpoint on that. Now, FTX, we know the whole story. I'm sick of hearing about it. But the issue is, as you know, SBF gave a lot of donations to, political organisation. And now there's a risk of those $73 million of donations being clawed back, which that's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. It's just the Democrats, clearly. Now, Almelda Research former CEO Caroline Ellison has decided to get an attorney, and it's apparently a top SEC regulator. And this lady's called Stephanie Avakin. Amazing experience. She is head of security and financial services department at WilmerHale, and they're top, cryptocurrency lawyers, right? So I think, Caroline Ellison, who looks like she's about 12, but I think she's 28 or something, she's thinking, crikey, I hope Sam, darling Sam, isn't going to put me in the firing line here. And I think she's doing the right thing by seriously getting some legal person to really go in hard for her, because honestly, she doesn't want to be left holding the potential prison sentence, which obviously young Sam is trying to avoid at all costs. So also Sam did say he was going to testify at the US House Financial Service Committee, saying he doesn't have all his information, it's all garbology, whatever. Sick of this guy. And he's going to appear remotely on December the 13th. People think he's still in the Bahamas, right? Also, Celsius Network to return $44 million to customers, but they're only going to refund lenders that have custody accounts. And apparently they own about $200 million to lenders with custody accounts, but only $44 million is being paid out. Also, Coinbase revenues, they came out and said their revenues are going to be 50% lower this year. It's massive, right? Their shares have gone down to 39.65. I just had a look a couple of minutes ago, and their shares were trading at 37.80. Now, Kathy Woods Mark bought some more Coinbase shares on Friday, 78,000 odd. She paid over $40 for them, and she holds 5.7 million of Coinbase shares, 5.7 million US in total, which is interesting. Now, Coinbase is not doing too well. They've reduced their staff by about 18%, which is a lot. Their revenues are really low. They don't have a lot of liquidity. I don't like Coinbase as a shop, as an exchange. I know they're regulated and all that sort of business, but they're not. Their stock has done seriously bad. And don't forget, the investors, I think, bought the stock around $275, the retail investor. So, they're suffering a massive loss here from $275 to 37.80, massive loss. Also, Microsoft, which I thought was interesting, has bought a 4% stake in the London Stock Exchange, and they're going to partnership with the London Stock Exchange, which could be their entree into cryptocurrency exchanges, right? A lot of the stock market exchanges are looking at amalgamating potentially cryptocurrency. So I think that's quite a big story in itself, that one for sure. Now, let me just check that I've mentioned everything I really wanted to mention. Oh, there was a hack as well. Lodestar Finance was exploited, and it was on Arbitrum's platform. Just go back in my notes for a minute just to make sure that I've mentioned some of the main stories I wanted to mention today. Anyway, let's talk about Ripple and the SEC. They're all going for a new deadline. Apparently, the parties want Judge Torres' deadline on the 4th of the 1st, 2023 in respect to the request of sealing of documents and summary judgment materials, right? Apparently Hoskins was out there yesterday, the founder of Cardano, and he was saying that the settlement was going to be on the 15th of December. But I'd say that's pretty much FUD, really. I've seen not a lot to suggest that the 15th of December for a settlement with XRP and the SEC, Ripple, right? Yes, the market's sort of thinking that because the market's buying more XRP, that's a fact. Volumes of XRP have gone up quite a lot in the last week or two. But, again, they want to get the latest submissions going. They want to get the stuff over and done with, and I don't blame Ripple because every day it takes longer and longer. It costs them more and more money. Jeremy Hogan, the USA lawyer, says that Ripple has a 70% chance of winning. Then other people say they have a 0 chance of winning. I'm very optimistic. I believe they should win. I just cannot believe that a regulator could stop incredible technology that's bigger than the internet, okay? But stranger and stupider things have been done by the regulators, as we all know, right? Also, we know that the court needs to disclose hidden documents by January, and God knows when these timelines are, how long this thing's going to take. That's for sure. It's getting very, very long in the tooth, I must say. Now, Ripple also is excited about projects in terms of carbon credits and gaming NFTs. And this was sentiment shared by David Schwartz, the Chief Technology Officer of Ripple, who's an absolute genius. He's very interested in carbon credits or carbon offsets. And they have been talking about this for years and years and years, right? And these carbon offsets or carbon credits are called, they're ways of reducing the carbon emissions in the environment, right? Which destroy the ozone layer and make our temperatures hotter and hotter and hotter, right? It's very, very worthy. Now, the problem is it hasn't worked in the past is because the US didn't want to buy into the whole story, right? And clearly you can't have a market in this thing if the US is not participating, and that's very obvious, right? They're very interested in gaming as well for non-fungible tokens. Ripple created a 250 million creator fund, if you remember rightly, a couple of months ago, and they believe that there's a lot of opportunity in both these areas, and I think that would be great. Now, also, Ripple's client, Nium, N-I-U-M, who uses RippleNet and XRP, okay, and that's very useful to know, has joined partnership and forces with PayCell, the international monetary transfers. Now, PayCell is a financial services platform in Turkey, and they announced a partnership with Nivim to basically offer, an open account for international money transfer from Turkey to the Middle East to everywhere. This is a big client, okay, and this is great for Ripple because Nium already use RippleNet, and they're now joining forces with PayCell in Turkey. And Turkey's got a massive population of people. I think it's about 180 million or so. I'd have to look it up, but it's a lot of people, right? And this means that, if you use this PayCell with Nium and XRP, RippleNet, you've got 24/7 transaction access, fast as fast, low costs. I mean, seriously, proper, thorough through. It's very fast to get your money, right? Now, PayCell was created by a Turkish mobile telecommunications company called Turkcell. And currently they have about 7 million clients, PayCell. And, apparently clients can pay for, their TV rent or their TV or their utilities or fines or repay loans or whatever, okay? So Nium, is in Malaysia, they're in Asia, they're in Australia, and clearly now they're in Turkey, which is great for Ripple XRP because it ultimately increases the circulation of XRP, increases the volume, increases the clients, and that is all good for XRP and Ripple because Ripple also get paid for platform and technology fees, which are extremely, extremely expensive, okay? Now, Ripple's partner Bitso has shifted millions, right, across that Bitso, the exchange. And Bitso, as you know, is in Mexico. Mexico's got a population, gosh, I think it's about 38 million. And Turkey's got a population of about 180 million. I think that's about right. So we're talking more and more clients every day for Ripple and, for XRP, which is fantastic. Also, there's a story out there, just came off the desk, that XRP and also the Zoom wallet are going to be entering the UK and France market. They already are operating in the Netherlands, but they also want to get licenses to go to Germany and Belgium and the rest of Europe. So apparently they now have authority to operate XRP and Fiat and, Zoom wallets in the UK and France. And that's a huge story in itself, which is great. Now, I mentioned decentralized and CoinGecko partnered. Yeah, I did mention that. Mentioned the Twitter thing. Mentioned the FTX thing. I'm so sick of that thing. Fair income. And the Microsoft stuff. And that's that one. And also, one other story I want to talk about is there was an exploit of Lodestar Finance exploited $5 million flash loan. And it was basically a vulnerability. A coder got into their back end of their system. And it was a PLV GLP oracle, which basically the attacker manipulated that code. This was a token that's supposed to have no values. There was no pricing oracle against it, but the hacker actually put a price against this PLV GLP and, created a market for PLV against GLP, right? So essentially they created a token with some value, which was a bogus token with value. They use that as collateral to borrow money from this lending system, which is called Lodestar Finance or Lodestar Lending System, if you want to call it that. It's a lending protocol. And then, clearly they borrowed money to buy another token, and then they, literally started selling that token against the borrowed money of liquidity, and apparently the attacker made something like 5.8 million to 6.9 million, okay? And, this is, things like this need to be audited, and they need to be audited by a CertIC, who are a cryptocurrency coder technology specialist that can check things like this, because these sort of things are not great, right? Apparently they also managed to burn 3 million of GLP and they made profit. Now, Lodestar Finance are trying to talk and negotiate to the hacker with a bug bounty so they can get some of their money back, which interesting story. And that was on the Arbitrum platform. So it's always interesting to know what level 2 level 2 businesses are on the level 1 platform of Arbitrum. And it happens to a lot of platforms where the hackers can, hack a DeFi, okay? And it's very clearly this is what's happening exactly in this situation. So just, finishing up, the big figures coming out this week in the fiat market, clearly the CPI, we have the FOMC meeting, the Fed announcement of interest rate hikes, how much, and, that sort of business on the 14th. That's certainly going to move risk markets big time, okay? And currency markets, interest rate markets, cryptocurrency markets, and stock markets, as well as corporate, debt and high yield and all sorts of things, okay? But I think, what I do want to say is things that you read, in the newspaper and, on stories, they're not necessarily true. Always do your due diligence, okay? Because you'll find a lot of the stories are copied. People don't know what they're talking about. And it's not correct. It's not correct what they're telling people. So, get your crypto education up. Learn what you need to look at. There's so much to look at in terms of crypto, right? I can talk about flash loans. I can talk about sandwich attacks, all sorts of things, DOS attacks, you name it. This is all crypto. And if you don't know this stuff, you need to get up and know and understand your exposures in crypto. And seriously, if people are worried about Binance, then they should just give up on this market, absolutely, because Binance is the market, right? But what I do see on the positive side, more and more people are coming into crypto. We saw a cryptocurrency shop buy an old private bank in Germany. We've seen that quite a bit, and there was one just bought last night for $15 million. We're finding that people are setting themselves, like Microsoft, are setting themselves up to have much more exposure to cryptocurrency markets, particularly with investing in the London Stock Exchange, okay? There will be integration eventually with all the centralized stock exchanges and cryptocurrency markets. That is just a given. You'll have cryptocurrency brokers just like equity brokers, that sort of thing, okay? So we've got a lot of work on at the moment. We're working on a Ripple, video. We're working on a NEXO one. We're looking at FTX. We're looking at sandwich attacks. We're looking at heaps of stuff, people. Honestly, we're looking at the physical curve against the futures curve. Currently, Bitcoin spot physical is trading about $300 higher than the futures curve. We're looking at funding curves. We're looking at everything. We are seriously, seriously busy, but we are loving it. So anyway, in going back to the World Cup, I really hope now, because France is still in, Morocco's in, England got done, that was that. Argentina is still in, and Croatia. So, I'd really love to see someone like, Morocco get up for number one, or even Croatia. I think it would make it really interesting because it distributes the wealth, to some of the poorer nations. And I think that would be fantastic. So I'm really waiting for the next World Cup, and the next game, and I'm really, really excited by it. Anyway, guys and girls, I'll let you go. Sorry I didn't do a couple of podcasts the other day. There just wasn't a great deal to talk about. But, we're working hard, and we'll be issuing some fantastic content on Patreon if you're a client of ours. Anyway, guys and girls, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.